Hi folks, this is Will Stone, Rugged Mountain Custom RVs here in Caldwell, Idaho, doing kind of a series on videos of why we at Rugged Mountain choose to build them the way that we do. And a couple of the things that we're going to talk about today are construction materials, why we use what we use. Let's start off with deck material. So when you have a deck or a roof, you have a couple of different choices out there. If you go to Home Depot and you're going to build a tree house, you have the same thing. You've got plywood, you've got oriented strand board or OSB, or you've got a third choice, particle board. They all cost, as you go down the line, they get cheaper. So back in the day, in the RV manufacturing business, everybody built them out of plywood. I'll explain the difference between the two. OSB or oriented strand board are strands of wood that are compressed together, glued together, and then baked to become one solid piece. Now this is a pretty thin piece of strand board. But then let's take its alternative, plywood, which we feel is the best. We're just going to get rid of the particle board because this is good for maybe desk furniture. That's about as far as it goes. We just had this piece in the shop. I had to find it. We don't build anything, tiny homes or rugged mountain truck campers, out of any of that. But let's take plywood. What is plywood? You can see it's a continuous grain. So what they do is they take 4 by 8 foot sheets and shave that layer off of a spinning log, and that's called veneer. So what they do is they'll typically lay it in odd numbers of layers, and it's laid cross grain. You can see the grain goes north and south on this piece. If we could see the next chunk down, the grain goes that way, so on and so forth, on down to the bottom layer. So our deck material here that we use at Rugged Mountain is 3/4 inch kiln dried plywood. We feel that this is going to make the strongest deck. We also use it in our sub deck, we use it on our roof, and so it's all plywood all the way through with our coaches. There's not a lick of strand board anywhere in here. I'm not going to name names, but the majority of the industry has gone to a thinner piece of strand board for their decking material. Reason is it's cheaper. You can get it cut in 8 by foot sections as far as 24 feet long. So imagine laying the deck on a 26-foot bunkhouse. You can have that piece down instead of going 4 feet at a time. You can have that thing nailed down in under 5 minutes. Pretty easy thing to do. Let's talk about strength though. When we screw through plywood, screws are way more apt to hold when they're going through plywood versus going through chips of wood that have been pressed together. Just it's the way that it is. That's why we prefer to use this. It's a lot more expensive, but it is a lot stronger. And when we're building coaches like we do here at Rugged Mountain Custom RV, we want them to last generations. Let's move next to wood frame versus aluminum frame. Okay, a lot of people, they say, well, boy, I want one made out of aluminum. Why? Well, the industry was built entirely out of wood for many, many years. The laminated aluminum wall came, I don't know, 20 years ago, give or take, something like that, but its popularity today is just giant. Why not build one out of wood? The advantage, the many advantages with going wood versus aluminum on a wall. Number one, with wood, we can adhere that thing together with 3 different mechanisms or techniques. We can staple it, we can glue it, and we can screw it. Okay, now wood is more flexible than aluminum. Wood also has R value, which aluminum does not have. We all know that a metal is a great conductor of temperature, both hot and cold. You can walk up to any RV that's a laminated aluminum framed wall on that cold, frosty day, and you can see exactly where all the framework goes through that thing because there's hot and cold transfer going on between those. Now the majority of them out there are hollow aluminum framed. Let's talk about how we put aluminum together for a frame. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. When it's done right, it's a great wall technique. But putting aluminum together, number one, it's a more costly material to do, but it requires a very high skilled labor to put together. We need an aluminum welder. So there are three probably distinct ways of building an aluminum frame wall. The best, tried and true, and arguably really the only way that it should be done, is fully welded on the seams where those things meet 90 degrees. Now there are some companies out there, again we're not going to name names, but we know that they're doing it, they just tack it a couple of times. I've even seen some stuff out there where they build the aluminum frame in the wall, all they're doing is using an L bracket and 3 screws to hold it together. Let's talk about that for a second, because every aluminum framed wall out there is going to have screws putting something into the aluminum frame. Now, we're typically using a steel screw into an aluminum frame. We know that the steel is stronger material than aluminum. With time and movement, that steel screw will tend to hog out that hole, is what we call it in the industry, and they become loose. And that's all there is to it. With a wood framed wall, we feel that the gain in R value, the ability to put the thing together stronger so it does have flex, but we're not compromising any of those contact points. We just feel that it's a way better way to go. There was an old adage that we'll borrow from a dear friend of ours here at Rugged Mountain Custom RV. She told me, she says, you're walking into a football game in Minnesota. You walk down the aisle and you've got wooden bleachers on your right and aluminum bleachers on the other side. Which ones are you going to sit on a cold day? If you sit on the aluminum, your butt's going to get pretty chilly. If you sit on the wood, it's not going to. So the R value in wood, we feel, is really the last component why we should be building wood walls. In our next segment, guys, what we're going to cover is water infiltration. I don't care how you made the wall. Water gets into it, you're in trouble. And we'll cover some of the techniques and methods that we've come up with here at Rugged Mountain Custom RV to thwart water infiltration into the wall, ceiling, floors, into the RV period. So for now, we thank you guys for tuning in. This is Will Stone, Rugged Mountain Custom RV.